Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight for the Twins Daily post-game pint. My name is Seth Stohs of Twins Daily. I get to be host tonight. I know Nick's done a good job this week. John's been doing a good job. Join us tomorrow after the afternoon game. I'm not exactly sure who's hosting, but we'll have another post-game pint after the Twins finish their 4-game, 2-city series against the Pittsburgh Pirates tomorrow afternoon. Couple things real quick. We've got a bunch of people in here. Feel free to use the chat. We're going to try to answer as many of your questions as we can. There's also a Q&A where I see we already have a couple of questions. And if you want to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand and we'll get to you right away. With that, let's get to our panelists, and we're going to go in order of how you are in my screen. So we're going to start with Matt Braun. Matt, how are you? Introduce yourself for about 3 seconds and then tell us what your post-game pint is.
All right, I'm Matt Braun. I'm probably the one here, I think, that's out of state. I'm in Washington right now, so that's why it's still light out. It surprises people, but I live in Washington. I root for the Twins. It's actually pretty nice, but I'm drinking here a Mac and Jack's. This is a somewhat local brew in Redmond, Washington, not too far from where I am right now. So wanted to show some support for the local,
All right. Thank you very much. Rena, what are you drinking here tonight?
So I've got some locally brewed glass of water in a Cleveland 2019 All-Star Game cup because my Twins Daily cup is dirty. It's crisp. It's fresh. I would highly recommend it. So
very good. Just sounds wonderful. Matthew Taylor, you're back again. We were on the same show again as we were with Rena last time I hosted. What are you doing this evening?
I've got something you might enjoy, Seth, a Coke Zero.
That sounds terrible.
No? Okay.
But do you at least have it in a good glass? It appears there's a good glass there.
Yes.
Very nice. A few rocks and such. All right, so again, I do have a drink with me, and I'm going to bring that out here. I've got a Pale Ale 394. It's a San Diego style Pale Ale. If you go to San Diego, be sure to get one of these. Obviously, the 394 related to Tony Gwynn's batting average in whatever year that was, 94. That sound about right? From the San Diego Brewing Company, the Ale Smith Brewing Company. But what I'm actually drinking is yet another Diet Dr. Pepper, but in a Twins Daily Winter Meltdown 2020 pint glass. So, all right, with that, the Twins won tonight 5-2 over Pittsburgh, and it's weird to say 5-2 because going into the ninth inning, it was 1-0. But I think I'm going to ask you guys all for topics of the game, and of course, we're just going to start it out with the obvious one, Randy Dobnak. Where do you go from there? Rena, we're going to start with you because the first 3.5 innings or so of the games, you were part of the Star Tribune's live video that included yourself, a couple other Twins Daily writers and contributors, Mary, who's in here, and also Steve Boer, but also Randy Dobnak's wife, Ariel, and his dad, Rick. So what was that experience like, and how cool was that moment to kind of enjoy the game watching it with them?
Oh, that was just unbelievable. I mean, what a spectacular experience watching such a proud family watch their guy play in their hometown in the stadium that he grew up loving and wanting to be a part of in the future. And just watching, the looks on Rick and Ariel's face talking about coming up and his very first paycheck with Utica, which I think it'd be fun. How much do you guys think that first paycheck was?
I know, I watched it.
Seth probably knows. So since you watched.
500.
250.
79 cents.
Okay.
Try that. Going from that to, where he was tonight, 6 shutout innings, 71 pitches, and I think it was 1 hit or something like that. But I mean, just that unbelievable journey and hearing everything that he did along the way, what it was like for him to get that call in Rochester. And literally, I don't want to spoil too much. Everyone should go check out that broadcast. But what that difficult journey was physically and emotionally was just spectacular, and it all perfectly wrapped in a bow tonight here at Pittsburgh, and I think it's by far the best we've seen him in his career.
Yeah, no question about that. Matthew, and we're going to go, by the way, we're going to go with Matthew Taylor as Matthew, and we're going to go with Matt Braun as Matt, not to be confused with Matthew Lenz, who also writes at Twins Daily, or Matthew Trueblood, who also writes at Twins Daily. So we're going to go with Matt and Matthew, and I pointed at them, but they may not be in the same place on your computer. Matthew, your thoughts on Dobnak, not just the story, but what you saw from him tonight.
Yeah, the story, Rena hit all the high points. It was just awesome to watch. And it was just another classic Randy Dobnak start. He kept the balls in the zone. He was throwing hittable pitches, and, the Pirates were hitting them, but right to our fielders, and we were making outs. And I think it was the efficiency that you enjoy the most, especially coming right off of the Jose Barrios start, where you're getting frustrated because his innings were getting up into, 20, 25 pitches an inning. And here comes Dobnak, and he's throwing 10 to 15 pitches an inning and just cruising. And that's what you like to see.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk more about the bullpen. I want the focus here to be primarily on Dobnak. But Matt Braun, Rocco Daly and Wes Johnson left themselves room to be criticized if things hadn't gone as they went over the final 3 innings by taking him out with just 71 pitches over 6 shutout innings. And frankly, I feel like he gave up about 2 hard hit balls. So what were your thoughts on him coming out? Do you leave him in that situation, or do you just let the story feel good and end with 6 shutout innings?
Well, it's kind of one of those like rock and a hard place situations, because if you let him in and he gets rocked, you're like, well, how could you let a rookie pitcher, go try and go 7 innings? So they played it safe, which is always something I can respect. I can understand that. Not just going to a bullpen, but going to a bullpen that's healthy and rested, because only Caleb Thielbar and Trevor May were used the day before. And look, even if the 9th inning goes where you need to bring in Romo and you end up burning both Stashak, Duffy, and Romo, you go to the next day, you still got Trevor May, you still got Tyler Clippard, and you still got Taylor Rogers ready to go. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, you'd love to let Randy go as far as you can, but it was a 1-run game. You have a dominant bullpen. You have a healthy bullpen. I understand why they went to that, and I think I would have done that too personally.
Yeah, and especially with who is coming to bat. They're 2, 3, 4 hitters. Josh Bell, who had hit him hard twice already, once for an infield single, and another hard line drive out. The next question, I think we all agree on part of the answer, but I think how we add to that is where we can maybe dispute or discuss a little bit. And I'll start with you again, Rena. General Soreness in the chat room asked the question, at what point do the Twins have to give Dobnak a regular spot in the rotation? Guy could not possibly be doing any more to earn it. So I know we talked about this probably 5 or 6 days ago. The last time he made a start, and again, was 5 shutout innings. Tonight, 6 shutout innings. Rena, what do they do?
There's nothing else for him to do, in my opinion, at this point to justify that he absolutely deserves a spot in that rotation. I mean, I know that a couple days ago, I think it was Saturday, on the same call, we all talked about him eventually taking on a Kenta Maeda in Los Angeles role where, he fills in here and there, maybe in the bullpen, maybe occasionally as a starter. I mean, but just watching him tonight flourish with very, very few mistakes and just the speed and consistency, how do you not give a guy like this a spot in the rotation, even though you may have paid more money for another pitcher, or if you've got veterans or people with a little bit more experience? But how do you justify it today in 2020 to not let this guy take a spot?
Yeah, I don't think you can, to be honest. But Matthew, what do you think? Has anything changed, or is your mind just kind of, it's only 3 games into the season? What are you thinking?
No, I think just what Rena said, he has to stay in the rotation. And I think a lot of that, as you've seen, has been sorting itself out with injuries and things like that. And I think that's going to continue to play out. And it might just be that way that we need Dobnak to be in the rotation, because we're 60% of the rotation is out, and however it goes in a 60-game season, you've seen all the arm injuries across the league. So I think we're going to need him there, but at the same time, he's 100% earned it. The one thing I think we do have to keep in mind and talk about a little bit is just that he's faced 2 of the coldest lineups in all of baseball in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So, I mean, something to think about. He's
No.
certainly pitched well, and you have to, you can only face the competition that you're going up against, but just something to keep in mind as he faces more potent lineups. Probably
Yeah, no,
not
I
during the
don't-
regular season, but in the playoffs.
I don't want to think about that. I just want to be happy for his 11 straight scoreless innings the last 2 outings. Let's forget about who the opponents were at this point. I'm kidding. You make obviously a good point. And Matt, any difference, any other opinion or any other idea on the idea of Dobnak in the rotation?
Well, I think Matthew said it also. By the way, it's very weird to say Matthew, not refer to myself. It's very strange. But Matthew said, these things kind of work themselves out. And like you also said, 60% of the rotations on the IL. Yes, we potentially have Odorizzi coming back this weekend. But even if he does come back, to what degree? How many pitches can he throw? And then how much do you trust Rich Hill, a guy who's 40 and has a long history of being injured? How much do you trust him to be healthy? What's this Homer Bailey situation like? I haven't heard anything about that since he got randomly announced that we were just pushing his start back and, oh, by the way, now he's injured. So I don't know. I don't think it's something you can be concrete about, but I don't think you have to be concrete about it, because I think the way the situation is playing out, you can kind of be flexible and be like, all right, Randy, great start. We'll see what happens in 4 days. 4 days go by. Okay, Randy, we still need you. And we'll just keep trugging along on that train. And until a decision needs to be made, then I don't think you got to make a decision.
We're absolutely right. And then that's kind of the key right now is they don't have to make a decision right now. Right now, Barrios, Maeda, and Dobnak are the 3 starters that are available. And Thorpe and Smeltzer are obviously there as well. They could do the opener. They can do bullpen games. Real quick before I go forward, KC Coop, and again, I wish I had my glasses on because I'm not sure I'm reading that name correctly, posted StatCast actually said 8 hard hit balls. I said 2, I don't know, but only 2 barrels though. So maybe that's what I meant or not. And then Mike Link noted, hey, Barrios faced the same bad lineup and didn't do as well. So a couple of my real quick thoughts, if even all the starters were there, because of the injury factor, the age of some of the veterans, I hate to say it, but I'd consider a 6-man rotation for the time being, again, until it plays itself out. One other point, I guess, on Dobnak before we proceed, 6 scoreless innings, just 71 pitches. I mean, honestly, the last couple of days, it's got all the feels, to be honest. Yesterday, it was the Caleb Thielbar story. And, I mean, honestly, when I think about the emails I used to get from his mom before he made it to the big leagues the first time, and you can just read in her words how proud she was. I know she passed away a few years back, but, man, I can't even imagine how proud she would have been yesterday. And then today, Dobnak. I mean, first of all, I mentioned it earlier, but, it's pretty cool, as you've said, as we've talked about, to be in his home stadium, a place he's been to many times, for a team that's his hometown team, and to do this well is fantastic. So, all right. Now, here's another topic as we do jump into the bullpen. I was, again, impressed or intrigued by the fact that Rocco Baldelli in the 7th inning went to Cody Stashak. And not that Stashak hasn't pitched in that inning before. He has. But they had their 3, 4, 5 hitters coming up. All 3 were left-handed or switch hitters batting left-handed, and Josh Bell, Colin Moran, and Brian Reynolds. And, that's a tough situation. That's as bad as the Pirates lineup is, and even some of these guys have hit so far. Those 3 are legit MLB caliber hitters. So I'm going to start with Matthew on this one. Your thoughts on how the bullpen was used, starting with Stashak. They went into Duffy in the 8th inning, who, again, made it look easy. And we'll get to Alcala and further beyond that. But start with those 2, Matthew. You're surprised they went to Stashak?
I was really surprised. I think Rocco has pretty much been throwing a perfect season so far in his bullpen decisions, at least the way that it's worked out in the end. So I've been really impressed with just his confidence in all of his guys, and he seems to be pushing all the right buttons. Really like the Stashak decision. I was sort of expecting him to go, I don't know, I was even considering possibly going to Taylor Rogers in that situation, just like you said, with the switch hitters or the lefties coming up with a 1-run game in the 7th inning with the top of the lineup. Wouldn't have been a bad spot, but Stashak pitched really well. He only threw 10 pitches, 3 balls. He was just throwing, strikes, good pitches, getting weak contact and got out of the inning quickly unscathed and was just an awesome outing.
Absolutely. Matt Braun?
Yeah, so I absolutely love the decision to go to Stashak. I'm a big Stashak fan. I think he showed last year that he isn't just a good reliever. I think he can be a great reliever. He had some of the best swing and miss stuff of anyone in the Twins bullpen. And this is the Twins bullpen that has a now revamped Tyler Duffy and also Taylor Rogers. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but swinging strike rate somewhere in like 15 to 17%, which you're getting like top 10 to 15-ish in all of baseball when you're talking about those kind of numbers. And this was a rookie last year. A rookie throws 91, 92. So he just has such a supreme feel for pitching, I feel like. And just, I mean, he got Colin Moran looking at 92 right down the middle. It was like he never saw a major league pitch before in his life. And that's just because of the way Stashak was able to pitch. So I love going to him. I think he's now part of the, 6 guys they have who you can use in a high leverage situation. And then I love going to Duffy. I mean, like you said, he's just been eating hitters alive. It's disgusting what he's doing to hitters. It's quite frankly illegal, I think. So I'm kind of afraid for him. He needs to rein it in. But, I mean, he just phenomenal stuff. Like I said, we'll get to Alcala later. So I'll end my thoughts there. But
yeah, well, and we'll jump to Rena real quick. But we've had a lot of people added here in the last few minutes. So I want to just, again, thank you for joining the post-game Pint. My name is Seth Stohs of Twins Daily, along with 3 Twins Daily writers on our panel, Matt Braun, Matthew Taylor, and Rena. I do welcome you. We've got 3 questions right now in the Q&A that we will get to, I promise. And you can also leave questions in the chat. So, Rena, your thoughts on the bullpen usage tonight? Any surprise? I know you're disappointed not to see Sergio Romo in the game, but at least we got to see him working in the bullpen a couple of times.
No, exactly. As long as the camera pans to Sergio Romo, I'm perfectly happy. No, and I completely agree with both what Matt and Matthew have said. I mean, watching his transformation from rookie innings eater last year into this elite 7th inning save situation, potentially, reliever is just remarkable. And I believe it was him who had that stat where he had faced 28 straight batters and didn't walk anyone, something along those lines. But Cody Stashak is a name that I think Twins fans will definitely remember for the rest of the season.
For sure. And I want to get back to Matt Braun because he's clearly very excited to talk about Jorge Alcala pitching tonight. So we'll give you the first word on that situation. And it was, just for those listening that didn't have a chance to watch, or if you're listening tomorrow or whenever you're listening to this, the Twins went into the 9th inning with a 1-0 lead, and Romo was warming up. When the Twins scored 4 more to make it a 5-0 lead, they went to Jorge Alcala to get the final 3 outs. So go ahead, Matt.
All right. So I was intrigued by the decision because we saw Romo warming up, and Rocco's sort of, off the top of my head at least, has really followed that, if you're going to let a guy warm up, the guy's going to go in. You're not just going to, burn his arm and then send him back down. So I was intrigued by bringing in Alcala, and I do like Alcala. I think I know he has great stuff. I mean, everyone saw what he was doing, throwing 98, 99 with a 90-mile-an-hour slider. I can't tell you how many Twins pitchers recently have had a 90-mile-an-hour slider. Actually, Bruce Starr did, but we traded him. So, he's got that potential. He just needs to find the zone. Although you could say that about a lot of relievers that are flamethrowing. Did give up a 2-run home run. I thought it was on a pretty good pitch. 97 at the top of the zone. Not many good hitters will hit that. I did like seeing him, though, at the end of the day. I like seeing him. I think he needs time. I think he needs to understand how to get major league hitters out. In a 5-run game, that's a pretty safe lead with just 1 inning to go. So
Certainly. All right, we are going to get to a couple of these questions. Obviously, feel free to ask more. But also, if Rena or Matthew want to add to the bullpen discussion, please feel free. Before I do, I want to just I was sitting in on the Zoom meeting this morning with Rocco Baldelli, this afternoon before the game. He did mention that Jake Odorizzi threw another bullpen today. And Baldelli is generally pretty conservative. He actually did come out basically and say that he expects Odorizzi will make a start this weekend in Kansas City. As far as Bailey and Hill, he didn't really say a whole lot. So, I don't even know that they've even thrown bullpens or anything yet, but hopefully that gets resolved and we can get the rotation back to full strength. So with that, we're going to go to the first question in the Q&A. It comes from Joey. We're going to start with Rena on this one. And the question is Mitch Garver going to get this thing going?
I have a hard time with this one because we're seeing moments of greatness. We're seeing, that home run he hit yesterday, and I was hoping that that would be something to give him a little bit of momentum, give him a little bit more confidence, but we're kind of seeing him go back to his first, second, third game patterns where, he's back to striking out. He's missing pitches that he normally would have hit last year. And I'm sure if we pulled up his baseball reference page, his percentages are still in the lower side of the blue. I hope that, Mitch Garver in the next couple of games will be able to kind of tweak his swing and tweak, what he's swinging at essentially to find that momentum that not only he had last year, but even just a couple of at-bats ago. I'm not pessimistic, but I'm not overly optimistic. I don't think that's the best answer, but that's what else can we say about Mitch Garver at this point?
Well, let's find out. Matthew, what would you add?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is pitchers adjusting against him. Cody Christie on Twins Daily wrote a piece that I thought was good that you guys should check out on Garver's early season struggles, pointing out just, pitchers saw how well Garver hit the fastball last year. They're throwing him less fastballs, more breaking balls. So it's an adjustment thing. I think Garver would be fine. He just crushes the ball. He has the type of approach that you can just tell he's a good hitter. He's not a guy that's going to just be awful, because we saw it last year. You don't go from his production last year to just being a bad hitter. He's going to get it together. It is tough and unfortunate in a 60-game season when you're a catcher, when you're the type of guy, especially with Rocco as a manager, that you're going to want to keep fresh and not play him every day. So it is going to be tough. In a 60-game season, we might not have the runway to get his stats up to where you'd want him to be, but I think he's going to get it going again.
Matt Braun? Maybe you'll hit on mute.
Yeah, I think I knew what you were getting to, though. It's just, man, it's so tough to watch. Because like what everyone else said, it's tough to watch a hitter who is good struggle, because you're just like, it's in there somewhere deep down. The only thing I'll add is that just hitting in general right now around the league is just tanked. I think league OPS is down something like 60 points. True Blood, I believe, actually had an article on Baseball Prospectus today about it, and he dove a little bit deeper into it. But and just using examples, I know Christian Yelich is just off to like the worst start you've ever seen in your life, and this is an NL MVP. So it's not something Garver's going through alone. A lot of hitters are going through this. I don't think there's much else to say other than you just hope he gets better, and you hope he refines it again soon.
And Robert Bakken kind of added in the chat or the Q&A, when are we allowed to worry about our offense? And of course, people who have followed me or know me on Twitter or just know me in general know that I tend to be pretty optimistic and think big picture. So in a normal season, I would say, hey, give it time. There's only 12 games into the season, but then you consider that that's 20% of the season this year. So, weird stuff happens in the 60-game season. It's never happened before, so we don't know that. But, anything can happen in a 60-game stretch. He could turn it on, and in 2 weeks from now, he could be hitting 300 with 6 home runs or something. So the one thing I did notice about Garver was he clearly was showing some frustration a little bit tonight. So that is one thing to watch. How about the question, is the Josh Donaldson injury worse? This comes from Logan J. Worse than what they are leading on? I'm going to say I'll answer that one because, again, Rocco Baldelli gets asked about that every day in his pregame presser. And he's on the trip, and he seems to expect him to play it sometime very soon. Baldelli is looking for Donaldson basically to come up to him and say, hey, I'm ready to go. Nobody knows more about his calf than Josh Donaldson, so they're continuing to work through that. Does anyone want to add anything to that? Any concern at this point beyond the fact that this has been an injury he's gone through previously? Matthew?
The one thing I was just going to add, and it's going off topic a little bit, but I think it can lead into another good topic for us to talk about, and that's just Marwin Gonzalez and how solid he has been to start this season. And it's a guy like him that makes an injury to Josh Donaldson, former MVP, actually palatable when you can get 300 plus hitting production from your backup third baseman. He's been playing really solid defense at third base or at first base, depending on where he's playing. And I think Twins fans should be really fortunate that we have Marwin Gonzalez. Thinking back in Twin season past, that would be, some other player, Jason Tyner, somebody playing third base that would be there instead. And so having Marwin there instead, Twins fans are pretty fortunate.
Any other thoughts on Marwin? Because he did come through with a big hit. I believe was there 2 outs or 1 out, but he drove in that second run, which the team just absolutely needed at that time. Rena?
I think Marwin is a testament to, in a sense, the Twins staff, because I know that there's a lot of heat right now on that Astros lineup. And if you look up and down that entire lineup, it's relatively similar to who they had in 2017. And you see a lot of guys struggling. I mean, low batting averages, lots of swing and misses, lots of confusion left and right, but you completely forego all of that in Marwin Gonzalez this year. And I think that whatever the Twins staff has done with him in both off seasons, last year and this year, has clearly done magic on Marwin Gonzalez.
As my friend Britney Spears would say, oops, I did it again there. Not doing it. But Matt, Braun, would you add anything to that? I know 90s references, it's kind of my thing. Anything to the Marwin discussion? He's played a bit at first. He played a couple games in right field when Kepler moved over to center. And he's absolutely fantastic at third. Your thoughts on Marwin and expand upon it. I mean, A-Ray Adrianza can play anywhere too.
Yeah, you want to bring in Adrianza. You can talk about Marwin kind of as a whole. It just speaks to the Twins' focus and realization that, hey, in this day and age of rest, you're going to need not just a 9-man lineup, but even a 10, 12. I just skipped 11. I don't like the number 11. 10, 12, 11. That's how deep you're going to, maybe even deeper, depending on injuries. And so it's not enough to just have your 9 guys and someone gets injured and say, oh, well, we couldn't have predicted that. Because you're going to have to be prepared for that situation. And so them going out getting Marwin, sending him to, what was it, 2 years, 21 mil, something like that. And knowing that they still had a full lineup and that he was going to be in the background, yet still get however 400 plate appearances or so, that's a great job on their part. It's great job anticipating such a need. And like Rena said, he's made adjustments to his game so far this year. We can tell that he's now as good as he's ever been up to that 2017 level where he was just tearing the cover off the ball. So it's invaluable to have a player like him on the team. It truly is.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a question from Daniel Dean in the Q&A, and this is one I asked Rena and Matthew when they were on with me about a week ago, and now they have just a day or two to decide. When they need to cut down to 28, who gets cut? And he asks possibly Alcala. No, I forgot which one is correct. But they're at 29 because when Rich Hill went on the injured list, they didn't bring up a 30th player knowing that this was coming. So this is going to kind of be lightning round again, and then I'll add a follow-up. But let's start with Matt Braun. Who do you think gets sent down? Is it the same? Has that opinion changed in recent days?
Maybe it's Alcala, maybe it's Poppin. It'd be kind of messed up if it's Poppin and he never gets into a game, but sometimes that's the way it goes. If you remember Carlos Torres last year. End of the day, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference, but it'll likely either be Poppin or Alcala.
Rena, do you think it will be a pitcher, or is there a hitter that you think has a chance to be sent down?
I'm also leaning towards Poppin because we haven't seen him come into really any high leverage or any leverage pitching situations, whereas we saw Alcala tonight. Despite Romo being ready, he got thrown into the game kind of last minute. So with Matt Braun on this one.
Matthew, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I still maintain my opinion from last time. I think it'll be Whitefield. I just think there's not much use for him. I think for your bullpen guys, you can have them in mop-up situations to save the rest of your bullpen, and there's a better chance of getting use out of them than Whitefield, who save a Byron Buxton injury. I just don't really see him getting into any game.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and that's part of Mike Link asked the question, was it a mistake to send Wade out and rely so heavily on Jake Cave? So it's not the same question, but Lamont Wade got one pinch running or defensive replacement opportunity during his 9 days or so with the Twins. But I mean, I feel like I don't want to answer this because I want to give you all a chance to first. But Jake Cave has been pretty good for the last 2 years. He's streaky, but he's also pretty good. So, I mean, I'm as big a Lamont Wade fan as there is. Love his approach at the plate. Think he's pretty good defensively. But Jake Cave deserves to be on this roster. He's a major leaguer. And, again, to steal from Brandon Warren, he's probably one of the top 4th outfielders in baseball. So, Rena, let's get your thoughts on that decision and Jake Cave in general.
Sorry, my internet has been a little bit unstable. And so can you go to someone else first? Because I missed like half of your question.
Okay. Well, we'll go Matthew then. Your thoughts on Lamont Wade, Jake Cave, and how that roster spot fits.
Yeah, I think Cave is just a great 4th outfielder. He's exactly the guy that you want. He's crushes righties. He plays really well. I think that his defense so far this year has seen, I don't know if it's better, but he hasn't really had any mistakes out in the field. Even in center, I thought there was a play early on that was it was kind of like a laser out to center field, and some guys might try to go in on that ball and it would go over their head, and I thought Cave made a really nice play on it. So even in center field, he's played decent, and it's unfortunate for Wade. He's a good player. He just picked the wrong roster to land on, unfortunately.
Rena, are you comfortable answering at this point?
I'm good now. I didn't know initially what we were comparing him to or what context. All I heard was, what are your thoughts on Jake Cave? And so I thought, I knew there would be more to the question, but
it's really funny apparently in the dugout. I mean, that's one answer, but yeah, we're comparing him with the Lamont Wade decision to send Wade down.
No, exactly. I would agree. I mean, I think that to a very, very big extent, both Lamont Wade and Jake Cave are extremely unlucky to be on the Twins roster because we've got 3 of the best outfielders in the game. And when you are someone who can make a big impact on the lineup and on the roster, but you don't get that opportunity to play or shine, you kind of get stifled and forgotten, which I think Lamont Wade has definitely fallen more victim to. And with that said, because he hasn't had as many high leverage situations, we haven't seen him, with the bases loaded, with, a really tight game of any sort. I would hesitate to keep him over Jake Cave because to me, that almost feels like a risk. But at the same time, Lamont Wade has good stuff. We just haven't had a chance for him to show or display that of any sort.
Matt Braun, anything to add?
So I'll add, I saw in the chat someone posted that they just optioned Aaron Whitefield. So congrats, Matthew Taylor. You're correct. Don't celebrate too hard.
I'm sorry, Aaron.
Sorry. Celebrating. Yeah, ouch, that kind of hurts. But anyways, like everyone else said, I like Cave. I think he's a solid player. It's really hard being a 4th outfield type, only going to play maybe 2-3 times a week at most. You're just sitting on the bench the entire time watching the game, just like the fans are. It's difficult to do that and still play at a high level. And he's been able to pull it off. He was a good hitter last year. He was a good hitter 2 years before that. I anticipate him being a good hitter again this year. Like what you said, this is just going to be Lamont Wade just being in a terrible situation. He might be the 6th or 7th outfielder besides putting Miguel Sano back out there in right field. So it's just a terrible place for him. But like you said, I like him as a player. I just don't see a chance for him on this team.
And you know what? I didn't really really answered my own question about who I would send down as that other player. And a week ago last weekend when we talked about this, I thought that Whitefield was a given to stay on the roster in his role. But I think things change, and obviously you have to figure that out. And the fact that 3/5 of their starting rotation is now on the injured list, they've already used a couple of bullpen days. It's really hard to envision optioning or sending down a pitcher at this point, even if that means they have 16 or 17 pitchers for the time being. I think they just have to do that just to make sure they continue to have enough arms. And again, Whitefield just didn't get opportunities either. As much as his elite speed, and he probably is just as fast as Byron Buxton, which I know a lot of people don't want to believe, but he probably is. That situation, they haven't had an extra inning game yet, where we've seen a guy start at second, or really haven't had a close enough game to really need a pinch runner. And as great as his defense is, once Buxton is proven healthy, I mean, he's going to play out there. So just a few more minutes with our panel, Matt, Braun, Matthew, and Rena. And we'll continue to answer any questions if you do have them. I do want to get to this one from Alexis, and I have to pan back up because we've been getting more and more comments, which we appreciate. She says, I miss minor league games and watching minor league players get ready for hopefully being called up. Trust me, nobody misses those extra 4 or 5 or 6 box scores every day more than me. But yes, the question then following that up from Alexis is, what pitchers in AAA are you most excited to watch next year? So that could be guys that are in the player pool and working at CHS, or, guys that aren't there right now. And I think we could probably think of a couple. And just because I don't remember who I started with last time, let's go with Matthew.
I'm actually going to defer. I'm honestly, as much as I love minor leagues, not as big of an expert. I would rather hear you guys talk about it.
Okay, Matt, Braun, you got any thoughts on that one?
I was going to say, Seth, I'm hurt you didn't remember that I wrote about the minor leagues last year. I thought you would have defaulted to me about that.
I should have. I apologize.
But anyways, yeah, I'm with you. I miss the minor league. I miss checking all those box scores, the 5 or 6. Sometimes I didn't miss writing about them. Sometimes it did get overwhelming when there's like a double header in the low minors, and you're like, oh, geez. But anyways, to answer the question, I'm really looking forward to Dakota Chalmers. I think this year, especially with the fact that there are no games being played, really hurt him and his chances, because he played a little bit at AA. I believe only got into the playoff games they played, but other than that was strictly a Fort Myers guy. And they still believed in him enough to put him on the 40-man roster and protect him in the Rule 5 draft. So I'm looking forward to him. He's got phenomenal stuff. I would have loved to have a full season of him at Pensacola, maybe at Rochester, maybe a major league call-up at the end of the year if everything was normal. But, of course, that never ended up happening. So we'll see. But it doesn't change my long-term outlook on Chalmers. I really like him.
Dakota Chalmers, again, came over in that Fernando Rodney trade a couple years ago after having Tommy John surgery. He didn't even pitch in a GCL game last year until June, and he made his first appearance on July 1st in Fort Myers. Like you said, pitched in the game in Pensacola in the playoffs, and then pitched in the Arizona Fall League. Definitely a good one. He was number 2 on my list of easy decision adds to their 40-man roster this last offseason. Rena, any pitchers you're looking forward to next year?
Yep. So initially we had Alcala, which he got called up, so we're good. And then I was actually also going to say Dakota Chalmers. But just to keep things a little bit fresh, I would also want to throw out Duran. I think he's ready. He's looking sharp. I mean, he's on the 40-man roster, and Tom actually has some really great in-depth videos about him on YouTube and some of his highlights from last season, which I would highly recommend. But I'm looking forward to the day that he gets called up.
Absolutely. And again, that was my number 1 choice for easiest decision to add to the 40-man roster last year, throwing 100 and all that. I will add just a couple of more. Number 1, a couple of guys from the 60-man player pool. Edouard Colina, another guy who throws 100 and the front office touts as having the best slider in the organization. He and Duran, I think, are guys that we could potentially see on a playoff roster this year if the need comes, that kind of thing. And, of course, their top pitching prospects, Jordan Balazovic, and he's not on the 60-man, at least at this point. So, I mean, we just wait. All we do is wait at this point. A couple other names, maybe a Luis Rijo, it's another guy I'm curious to follow. I think you made a good point. There's some guys I really wish we could have watched this year, but obviously that is what it is. Any last questions in the chat room? Get those in right now. Otherwise, we're just going to take a couple more minutes here and call it a show. I want to read through the chat, and then we'll get to one last question in the chat room, kind of to end it. All right. Yeah, Mike mentions Cave is currently like 3 for 17, and since his big home run, haven't seen anything. And I mean, again, for me, it's more, we're talking about 17 at bats type of thing, and he's got plenty of track record as a streaky but very productive hitter. One thing I asked each of you to do is to just kind of think of one recent article you've written, either at Twins Daily or maybe a project you've been on. I'm going to start with Rena on this one because I think you kind of already gave us one in that cool Star Tribune project that you were part of tonight with Randy Dobnak's family. But Rena, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely please check out that video if you get a chance and hear all about the cool, fun Randy stories from when he was a kid all the way till now. The last article that I wrote for the Twins Daily was about a week and a half ago, and it was about some of the overreactions from the first weekend in baseball. And I've been kind of checking back on it. You'd be surprised to see how many things that were initially overreactions start to become more of a reality. And that's something that I like to kind of think back on over time. So still recommend checking it out just to see that.
All right, I want to add this really quick, and then Matthew, you'll go next with what you've been working on lately at Twins Daily. But one thing that came out of that, Ariel Dobnak, Randy's wife, talked about the T-shirts that I'm sure you've seen that they've been promoting, and all of the proceeds were to go to St. Jude's, which Ariel's very active in, and Randy and both of them have fully supported. She made a comment that they made over $25,000, and Great Lakes Bat Company donated the entire profits to, they donated $25,000 to St. Jude's. They're going to wait for an opportunity where Randy and Ariel can present that check to St. Jude's directly. They also, which I thought that was pretty cool first on its own, $25,000 is fantastic. Anything over $25,000 that they made, they decided to buy more kids' T-shirts. And so they made another 80 to 100. I couldn't remember what number they said, but it was like 80 to 100 T-shirts that have been donated to, I don't know if it was needy kids, but kids in the area, baseball players, things like that. So I think that's tremendous, and I wanted to get that in before we forget tonight. With that, Matthew, what have you been working on?
Yeah, so I have a piece that's going up tomorrow, and it's centered around the 4 Twins that I think have been struggling the most, or the 5, which is crazy that there's that many Twins batters that are struggling when the team has the best record in baseball. But a couple of them actually, hit a couple doubles tonight, actually. So Luis Ariz, Byron Buxton, Miguel Sano, Mitch Garver, and Josh Donaldson. So writing about each of them, reasons why you should be concerned. There's a few stats that point towards reason to have concern, but there's also stats to point towards reason for optimism. So for the people watching this, encourage you to check it out tomorrow, and leave some comments letting me know who you're most concerned about, who you think is going to be fine, who you think might not be, and I think it'll be an interesting read.
Appreciate that, Matthew. Matt Braun, what do you got going on?
Yeah, so I actually kind of took a break from writing. I didn't write a whole lot somewhat recently, but I did do a post-game review a few days ago. I got an article coming up in a few days talking about Alex Avila, how I think he's actually being underrated by a lot of people. Same with you, Matt. Matt Taylor, I saw you had him low on your list when you ranked Twins. So I don't want to call you out, but I saw that along with what I've generally seen from reactions from Twins fans on Twitter. I'm like, yeah, I think this guy's got a little bit more than people would give him credit for. So that should be up in the next few days. So keep your eyes on that.
All right, thank you, Matt. A couple last questions in the Q&A from Craig. Any updates on the Turtle? Of course, La Tortuga, Williams Astudillo, Most recently, it has been announced maybe a week and a half ago that he has been cleared of COVID protocol. He is in St. Paul, just working out, getting some at-bats, running around, playing different positions. They're trying to put him in a position where he could be a possible call-up at some point. I think the other news from this week is that it sounds like they're going to keep the rosters at 28 throughout the whole year, as opposed to dropping them down to 26, which was the original plan. I think that's because, like the Twins, there are pitchers and other players going down left and right, so having 28 is probably a good thing. The last question, I'm going to just kind of throw it out there because we spent a lot of time on it earlier. Matthew Clark asked, could Randy Dobnak find himself permanently in the rotation? And I think all of us agree he deserves it. He should be in the starting rotation. Right now, that's not even a question because the Twins have 3 starters on the injured list right now, but they're going to have to find a way to do that. Each one of you, any final thoughts on the Dobnak performance? Because, again, it was spectacular.
I kind of actually did. So throughout this call, I was thinking a lot about how we can keep Dobnak on the roster, whether that's, a 6-man rotation. I don't see anyone necessarily getting bumped, but I wonder if the Twins could utilize Rich Hill in almost like a Shohei Ohtani situation. Not that we want him to hit, but using him every single Sunday or keeping a very consistent pitching schedule where he always pitches on that day of the week. And then the rest of the 6 days, we'll figure it out as it goes. So we'll see.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And it might be a good thing for, just even right now where the Twins, they have their stretch where I think they're in about game 6 of 36 games in 37 days. That might be a little more difficult. But even then, yeah, be that consistent with a couple of these guys as they're coming back. Great idea. Matthew, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just super happy for Randy. The one other thing that I just stood out for me today and has been a theme for the season has been a much improved defense. I think fielding was a struggle for the Twins last year. Made a bunch of good plays today. Luis Arraez made a really nice play at second base. Mitch Garver threw out a guy stealing second. He made a couple good throws down to first base as well. Rosario made a really nice play off the wall. Didn't gun down the guy at second base, but made a really nice play off the wall again. So something to monitor. Improved defense would be huge for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the national writers today, or maybe it was one of the Pittsburgh writers before the game, kind of said this team is known for being the Bomba squad, and Rocco didn't hide from that. But the reality is they just play pretty good baseball. Defense, you mentioned the Arraez play. I mean, I saw him in Cedar Rapids about 4 years ago. It wasn't pretty, and it hasn't been pretty for a while. But he's, I think, made some big strides. There's just a lot of little things, finer points that I think this team is really good at. But with that, I'm going to call it a show. I want to thank you, each of you, our panel, Matt Braun, Matthew Taylor, and Rena. Appreciate Rena doing double duty tonight with her appearance on the Star Tribune Facebook Live thing with the Dobnak family. The Twins won in Pittsburgh 5-2 tonight. Randy Dobnak with his 2nd win of the season. I think Tom Fromming pointed out his career ERA is now 1.25, but what a great homecoming for him. It's unfortunately his family and friends were not able to be there, but I really hope ratings for this game in Pittsburgh were off the roof. So with that, the big story, obviously it was 1-0 right until the end, and then Max Kepler hit the big 3-run home run to give them a little bit of breathing room, which they ended up needing because Josh Bell, the Pirates all-star, went 3 for 4 and added a 2-run homer in the 9th inning to make it a 5-2 game. The Twins are now 10-2. Again, thank you to our panel. I want to thank you who are here, all of you who added comments in the chat, questions in the Q&A. We had some great questions, and I really enjoyed it. I hope our panel did as well. But if you missed any part of this or want to hear our Randy Dobnak discussion from earlier, maybe even see what we were drinking, you can find this tomorrow at a number of places. You can find it on the Twins Daily game story for tonight, which Matt talked about writing a couple of those, the Twins Daily YouTube page, the Twins Daily Facebook page, the Twins Daily podcast, which you can now get on iTunes as well. Again, our next post-game pint will be tomorrow. That's Thursday afternoon, another afternoon game. We'll have to check who's hosting that, but be sure to tune into that. And you can also check out to find out when the next post-game pint is. Go to postgamepint.com. Pretty creative there, huh? We'll see you very soon. Thanks for any feedback you may have. Have yourselves a great night, and go Twins. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night.
Woo.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers. Empty can.
Water.